Hello, I'm Lloyd, S4's physicist, and in this video we're going to be talking about sound. So what is sound? Well, whether we're talking about the rumbling of traffic, or the banging of a drum, or even the flying of a tiny little mosquito. Sound is a type of energy. Specifically, sound is vibrations that pass through atoms or particles in a solid, a liquid, or a gas. So sound travels by vibrations. So right now when I'm speaking, my vocal cords are vibrating in my throat and they are vibrating through the air. Right now you're listening to this because your speakers or your headphones are vibrating and sending those signals to you. So sound can only actually travel from one place to another if it has something to vibrate through. So in this case, sound's vibrating from my mouth, through the air, or underwater, or it can travel through solids as well. That means that sound cannot travel through space because there's no air, there's no atoms, there's nothing to vibrate through. And I can show you how that works. So we have a bell jar here, so it's a jar with a bell in it. And what we can do is remove all of the air from inside that jar and see what happens to our ringing. Now these vibrations, these sound vibrations, actually travel as waves. Now what that means is you get a series of bursts of vibrations passing through the air or through water or through a solid. And how many of these bursts that pass through a point in a given time, say a second, is the frequency. So if you get 5 complete waves passing through a point, that means you've got a frequency of 5 hertz. If you've got 100 waves passing through a point, you've got 100 hertz sound. Now the frequency is the same thing as the pitch, so the higher the frequency, the higher the pitch of the sound, and the lower the frequency, the lower the pitch. So 100 hertz is going to sound like a much higher sound, a bit like our mosquito. And the lower sound, the lower frequency, the lower pitch is going to sound more like our traffic rumbling. So to show you this a bit more clearly, I'm going to use a demo of me playing the guitar. So we can play a lower note. And we can also play a higher note. Now if I play the lower note but use slow-mo video, you can see that there aren't that many vibrations, there aren't that many waves passing through the string. Whereas if I did a slow-mo of the higher note, which produces a much higher pitch, you can see that in the same amount of time, it's vibrating a lot more. There are a lot more waves passing through. There are loads of sound waves bouncing around us all the time. And if you're able to understand those sound waves, you can piece together what's happening in your environment, which is very useful. Now, luckily for us humans, and a lot of animals in fact, we have organs that are specifically adapted to hear. And of course, in our case, that is the ear. So this is a blown up model of our ear. And the first thing you'll probably notice with our ears is that they are very large, very dish shaped. That means we can collect a lot of sound waves that are coming in. So in order for us to hear, all these sound vibrations through the air, first of all, get funneled through the ear hole here, the opening. And these vibrations will then vibrate down the ear canal, which is this channel that leads into the inside of our heads. So it'll meet the eardrum, which you might have heard of before, which is a very thinly stretched bit of skin. Now the eardrum separates the outer ear from the inner ear. And when these vibrations hit the eardrum, it makes the eardrum vibrate too. So if I open this up, the eardrum connects to some bones in the inner ear. So we have the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup inside. These vibrations will get passed on again to the cochlea, which sits just inside the inner ear. Now the cochlea is a funny looking thing, it looks a bit like a snail, a spiral, And inside the cochlea there is fluid, and there is also little hair cells. So these vibrations that have passed all the way through our ear canal, through the eardrum, through the bones, then get passed on to the cochlea, which makes the fluid in it vibrate, which makes the hair cells in it vibrate. And depending on what pitch, what frequency the sounds are, different parts of the cochlea's hair cells will vibrate. So that then passes on information to our brain. So it's these hair cells that then convert these vibration signals into a signal that is more useful for our brain to interpret. So it'll convert it to electrical signals, which will pass up the nerves and then inside our brain, and then our brain decides what on earth is going on around us. So that might be traffic, that might be geese honking at you, that might be a plane going over. Your ears will interpret what those signals actually mean. So us humans have evolved ears that can detect sound somewhere between 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. So that means between 20 waves per second and 20,000 waves per second, which is quite a big range. But there are bigger. A lot of animals can detect sounds that are lower or even higher. So bats, for example, can detect up to 120,000 Hz, similar to dolphins underwater. That's because those are the sounds they need to worry about, whereas us humans need to worry about sounds between 20 Hz and 20,000 Hz. Now, you can test out your own range of hearing because it can vary from person to person, and it can also change as we get older. So if you hop over to the S4 portal and log in, you will find the sound frequency hearing test. Have a go, see what your hearing range is and compare it to your friends. But that's all for now from me and my model of the ear. Go take a look at the video all about light and how we see, and also see if you can trick your brain using the illusions.